Alex, I'm really interested in these same ideas, representation, the media, um, and how we experience the world right now. Because we're human beings. Like I think we all, throughout history, we have evolved in different stages of consciousness, different ways of making sense of the world and making sense of who it is to exist. And right now we're in this mechanical, representational, virtual world. We almost live in a virtually projected world because we don't see nature anymore. In other words, the immediacy of nature, the just so, present only for its own sake, no real reason for being. I mean, Darwin's theory of natural selection suggests that, all life inherently wants to survive and hand on its own genes, and there's that interpretation of life. But at the same time, it seems as though this supposedly, strictly biological theory of natural selection is really a sort of phenomenological projection. So, in other words, Charles Darwin is situated in 19th century industrialization and the rise of this welding together between science and technology. In other words, science became the art of building machines to manipulate the natural world. And because of the way a human being was situated in this environment, the way Charles Darwin experienced himself, say, his interpretation of nature was tainted by that because he's mediated. He can only experience the immediacy of nature through his culture's representations of it. And so his interpretation of organisms in the natural world as being driven to survive, like this egotistical survival of the fittest mentality, it seems to me was really a projection of capitalism and of this idea that to really advance the human race, we had to treat our society and our cultural evolution as a will to power, as it's a dog-eat-dog world, and we all need to, in some sense, get attention for ourselves, because that's what culture is. Culture is based on attention. You develop symbols and ideas out of those symbols that circulate throughout the community of sentient beings and direct attention towards whatever your specific cause is, whatever you want to stand for, whatever, and it's usually whatever brings you power and wealth and fame. And I'm going to quote Zingo Tita again. As political activity becomes the production of representations, the dynamic of commerce is reproduced in politics. Because political representations must contend with clutter, they must be packaged in a certain way. They must grab the most attention possible in the least amount of time and get across some simple message. Mainstream players in the game of politics have understood this ever since Johnson clobbered Goldwater with that little girl counting down to Armageddon on her daisy petals. But it took longer for them to realize that laws of representational competition were going to hold sway over more than the campaign ads. It wasn't until the Clinton administration that players began to talk openly about governing as a form of campaigning. Though Michael Deaver and Ronald Reagan pioneered the process, Michael Deaver and the administration of Bush II has been pursuing it transparently. The whole mission to Mars idea that Bush trotted out failed the laugh test because it so obviously turned policy itself into publicity. The fact that its exponents didn't realize how it would play shows how entrenched that thinking is. So this is the effect of mediation on politics, and it seems to be almost identical to what happened to Darwin, in the sense that the way we experience ourselves as separate from the other. Shows us that our capitalistic way of dealing with that separateness, of reverting to this sense of, I must survive at all costs, and it doesn't matter what I do to my neighbor in the process, because ultimately nature works by evolving, and the strong survive. But there's all kinds of, there's all kinds of alternative explanations for why evolution takes place that don't involve only natural selection, that show life is really about separate organisms coming into symbiosis and communion and ecological relationships. Because without all that development, all that connection, that web, everything would go extinct, because it would be unbalanced, it would be unstable. If each organism was really trying to win it all for themselves, it wouldn't work. So yeah, I'm gonna end it on that note, and yeah, and check out this book if you can, Mediated by Thomas Ngotita. It's really good.